On the show today, Eric cooks in Carême's original kitchen at Valençay.
At the time, it would have been the Rolls-Royce of the kitchen.
We have seasonal desserts, a sweet pumpkin pie.
That's already yummy.
And caged apples in a zabaglione sauce. And Eric takes on one of the great man's infamous centerpieces, building a tower of macaroons.
Today we see Carême rise from the humblest beginning, abandoned here in Paris as an orphan, to finding himself cooking for the Emperor Napoleon.
Carême was still in his formative years as a pastry chef here at Monsieur Bailey's, just behind the Palais Royal. But he harboured a desire for self-improvement and spent his time off learning to read at the Bibliothèque Nationale.
So Adrian, what brought Carême here? Why was he spending all this time off here at the National Library?
You have to imagine someone abandoned, left with absolutely nothing. His father said, "Va petit avec ce que Dieu t'a donné," which is go, my son, with what God gave you. And I think that what would drive him all his life, this fact that there is a time where I can become someone. And I think every Tuesday and Friday, when the library was open to the public, Carême would come here and he would read books on architecture. So the books he was interested in was probably the type of book you could find at that time. So he would just pick up a book, open it, look at it, and then would get some new ideas.
This is, my Bible. I mean, looking at that picture and this one, you can see the same style, and you can see obviously he got inspired by this book for his centerpiece or pièces montées.
We could almost say a copy and paste.
And he could draw, of course. He drew all his own design before he made them.
Yeah, and so he said, well, I can't become really an architect, but what I can do, I can elevate the art of cooking somewhere else, and this would elevate my own status.
Carême would have been more than pleased to see his own book sitting next to those guys.
I think so. He'd probably be very honored.
Carême's pièces montées became more and more adventurous, creating bigger and bolder constructions that became the talking point of Paris. The idea of a centerpiece, a construction decorated with petit fours for after dinner, hasn't really survived. But it is possible to create a simpler version using the modern favourite, the macaroon.
Okay, for this one, I'm going to make a tower of macaroon. They are quite tricky to make, the macaroons, but I'm going to show you the best way to do it, and hopefully you're going to be able to do them at home. But it's not just going to be the macaroon, it's going to be a tower. A fantastic display will be a perfect centerpiece for any occasions. First of all, we're going to sift our ground almond with our icing sugar together. When I came to this country 20 years ago, nobody knew what a macaroon was. The only customer who bought it actually bring them back to the shop complaining they were not cooked because they were chewy inside. And it's interesting to see that, 20 years later, you see macaroon everywhere. They are so fashionable. Once you have finished sifting, blend some egg whites and caster sugar and combine. Time to bring in color and flavor. For green macaroon, add pistachio extract. Oh, that lovely, strong smell of pistachios. It's almost like raw almond, very, really nice. Mix thoroughly and carefully by hand, and watch your mixture transform. Okay, that's the kind of texture you can see is nice and shiny, and it starts to get runny, so that's going to be perfect. So the good thing about the macaroons is you can use that basic recipe and flavor it with anything else. I mean, you got any flavors from poppy to vanilla, coffee, raspberries here. That's even Earl Grey tea. Macaroons are very fashionable, and pâtissiers are always looking for new ideas and new flavors. You can really go crazy with them. I even got some savory one the other day with chopped olives inside and sea salt on the top. Not my favorite, I have to say, but it was an experience. We're not going to put them in the oven straight away. That's the mistake a lot of people do. They pipe them, brush them in the oven, and what's happened is with the heat they start to explode and they cracked. What we're going to do is we're going to leave them here for 5-10 minutes till we got The word we use in France is croûter. It means they almost form a natural crust. They start to dry on the outside, and you can feel with your finger, they don't stick anymore. And this is when you put them in the oven. In the oven for 12 to 15 minutes at 150 degrees. Right, so the macarons are in the oven now, so we're just gonna make the filling to sandwich them together. So I'm gonna make a basic, really, buttercream. So to do that, I got some icing sugar, unsalted butter, and a bit of vanilla sugar too. And we're just gonna zap them quickly. Traditional buttercream, really, the fast way to do it. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so the macaron is still doing well. We've got enough time to prepare the centerpiece. Silicone paper, and here I got quite a surprising shape. It's a cone, and it's made of polystyrene. And that's going to be the base for our centerpiece. So I got some melted white chocolate here, and I'm just going to brush it all over the cone. If you are very hungry, at the end of the evening, you can probably lick them, the chocolate off. It's just really a base to stick our macaroon on. And of course, what I'm doing here is just one type of macaroon, but you will see when we put the final display all together, the sky is really the limit. Okay, now this is the time to have fun. We know the macarons are finished, they are perfect, so it's time to put the centerpiece together. Dip the macaroon into the melted chocolate. Using a cooling spray of compressed air, freeze them into your centerpiece. Coordinate or mix up your colors. The effect is worth it. Here we are, a lot of effort, a lot of hard work, but you know, look at this. An amazing centerpiece, my tower of macaroon.
By the mid-1790s, thousands had walked to the guillotine, and the revolution was falling apart. Robespierre, who had ordered the Reign of Terror, had been toppled, and Carême's recreation of some of France's great monuments had captured the public's imagination. In Sugar, he was reminding them of a time when France was great. Charles Talleyrand, a French diplomat who had supported the revolution, sensed the national mood. He was sponsoring a new leader, Napoleon. Talleyrand had seen Carême's now famous pièces montées and wanted some for a banquet he was holding here at his headquarters, the Hôtel de Ville.
Well, for the first time being here at the Hôtel de Ville in this absolutely magnificent room, you can imagine the pièces montées and beautiful table and all this fantastic food to be served. I understand how important Carême's and Talleyrand's dinner will have been in the diplomatic world. And I think, to be honest, and this is not because I'm a chef, I think those dinner will have been as important to France than Napoleon's battles.
By the turn of the century, Carême was in his mid-20s and was known all over Europe as Napoleon's chef. In truth, Napoleon hated the idea of public banquets and was more comfortable on the battlefield than in the dining room.
By 1804, Napoleon was an emperor and Josephine was his consort. But it was here, in Chateau Valençay, that all the diplomatic dining was happening. Talleyrand, of course, was in charge, and he wanted Carême to be his chef.
Whilst Napoleon conquered most of Western Europe and even parts of the Middle East, it was Talleyrand who, around the dinner table, negotiated the terms of surrender, signed treaties, and forged new alliances.
Talleyrand was probably the most important politician of his generation after Napoleon, and when Napoleon became emperor, he was really the power behind the imperial throne. The problem was that Napoleon really didn't like dinner parties. He thought it was incredibly boring to have to sit around for longer than 20 minutes. So he had the idea that Talleyrand should do his business entertaining for him, which meant giving dinners on an enormous scale to all the most important people in Europe at the time.
I mean, how many dinners are we talking about?
Well, he had to give 4 dinners a week with a minimum of 36 guests, so roughly a minimum of 150 covers a week.
A week, oh my gosh. I mean, those guys have an amazing connection. I mean, I remember, when I was in the Navy, of course I was close to my captain because, we have to decide the menus, but those two were getting on like a house on fire.
Yeah, it was an amazing relationship, and it was founded, I think, in both of them having been abandoned as children. Carême was thrown out, literally, in the streets of Paris when he was 10. And Talleyrand was injured in an accident when he was a small child, and he was lamed. As a result, his family disinherited him.
Oh my God.
And this was a connection between them that drove both their ambitions.
That connection was about more than just food or shared experiences. Talleyrand needed Carême, who had become his most important diplomatic weapon.
Every morning, Carême would come down from his garret and he would spend an hour with Talleyrand discussing the menu, discussing what produce was in season, which guests were coming and what they would prefer. And they would have this conference every morning about that evening's menu.
And this is, the man who was running the country, mostly when Napoleon was away.
Yeah. I mean, he was in charge of really quite a big chunk of Western Europe, and yet he would still give an hour every day to his chef, which is extraordinary.
It was the combination of feeling at the heart of Talleyrand's plans and having access to local fresh produce that inspired Carême to come up with the 365-day seasonal menu.
So this is the actual kitchen where Carême cooked.
And what an amazing kitchen. I know today it's probably looking a bit dusted and old-fashioned, but at the time it would have been the Rolls-Royce of the kitchen.
Really, it would have been considered very high-tech.
The stove here came straight from Austria.
Having the best kitchen in France and a huge reputation meant the visiting guests expected complicated food. But Carême was determined to use what was available and began to simplify the cuisine.
So I thought, a bit of a challenge.
Right.
Because Carême loved giving challenge to his guests. Mm-hmm. Sometimes some very basic food, almost like peasant food. So I think we're going to do the same. I'm going to do a pumpkin pie.
Right.
We're working with the season. We are in the autumn, so the pumpkin is in season. And we've got some eggs, double cream, soft brown sugar, and a lot of nice spices. We've got cinnamon, ground ginger, nutmeg, and we got as well some cloves. So the first step is we're going to prepare our pumpkin. Chop, deseed, and cut into bite-sized chunks. So I don't think the maestro will have been very pleased with us in his kitchen.
No, no.
I'm wearing we're both wearing the wrong outfit. Yeah. And you, of course, being a woman. Because
I'm a woman, absolutely, because he was incredibly prejudiced about that.
Exactly.
And he repeatedly tried to ban women from his kitchens altogether, and he treated them very cruelly when they did work.
Oh, God. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to steam the pumpkin. Let's get some foil. And that's going to go in a hot oven.
Okay. For how long?
To steam for 40 minutes. So this is very nice and squidgy. And actually, I'd done some earlier, and I kept that warm here in
Carême's oven, wow.
And do you know why there was no woman in the kitchen?
Why?
Trying to lift that door. Exactly. So that's what we are looking for. So we're going to leave it to cool down a little bit more, and we're going to start doing our pastry base. Grease a shallow baking tin and place in your sweet pastry. So we want to build a kind of crust all around it.
Something Carême would approve of.
Absolutely. Okay. Once you've created your pastry base, it's time for some rustic decoration. What I want you to do is to go all around like this and keep them a bit curled so we get some texture going on. Right, that's great. That looks very good. And we're going to cook it blind. Blind bake for 10 minutes. Time for the filling. Puree the pumpkin pieces. Beat some eggs. And when they are mixed, you can add the brown sugar to it.
Brown sugar, okay. Right, so what goes in next,
Okay,
Eric?
the spices. You can just put the whole thing in.
Right, like that.
I'm gonna add the puree now. You can.
Oh, it smells amazing.
Okay. And the next step is we got some double cream.
Okay.
There we go.
That's already yummy.
That's it.
Okay.
And that's gonna bake slowly at a temperature of 150.
Okay.
And that probably take up to 40 minutes to set.
Carême had started a new revolution. Simple, unfussy food, cooked with seasonal produce, something we still value today.
Lovely thick cream.
Delicious. That's exquisite. It's so light.
It's light, yeah? You would expect it to be.
And it's not
very
it's not
heavy.
too sweet either.
I don't like sweet dessert. They used to use a lot of sugar in all his recipes.
When one looks at Carême's recipes, I think he wouldn't have approved of this. There's not enough sugar in
They
it.
use huge quantity of sugar in his recipes. I mean,
Now they'd be much too sweet for the modern palate. Pounds and pounds and pounds of sugar. In fact, the puddings he made were so sweet that quite commonly they would have dentists in attendance for any of the guests.
Really?
Who suddenly had to have a tooth pulled. Yeah.
Really? So they have to have-
Yes, the polite host would have a dentist there to pull the tooth right out.
amazing setting, beautiful pie, great day. Thank you very much. Just need the champagne, really. Chin chin.
Chin.
Carême's vision in the use of seasonal produce has long inspired Eric and has directly influenced this next winter dish.
This recipe is actually my favorite winter recipe. It's actually a baked apple wrapped in lattice of puff pastry. I call it cage apple, and I'm going to serve it with a Marsala zabaglione. Zabaglione is an Italian sauce, very light and fluffy. And what I do to stop the apple to kind of explode, I'm going to slice the skin all around in the middle like this. And I slice the top off. And a little bit at the base as well. Okay, now using a peeler, I'm going to carve the inside. And of course you have to be careful not to break the skin. You know, you want to leave some pulp inside, but as well we need to have enough space to put quite a bit of our stuffing. Okay, so that's done. And now I'm going to stuff them with a selection of dry fruit. So I got some chopped apricot, some golden sultanas, and I got some apricot preserve here. So I'm just going to put a good spoon of apricot preserve, push it down. Just going to put a little slice of butter on each one, unsalted butter. Sprinkle a bit of dark brown sugar to give a nice molassy taste. So if you imagine when this is going to go in the oven, you know, the butter is going to melt right through the apples, the sugar is going to caramelize. To complete the filling, sprinkle cinnamon and top with walnuts. And we're going to prepare the puff pastry, the lattice. We've got a sheet of puff pastry here, rolled to roughly 2 millimeters, so not too thin. And I'm going to use this lattice roller. You can get that in all department stores. And what you do, it's you just press it down your puff pastry, and that will give you a beautiful lattice effect. And when it's going to bake, it's going to stretch even more as well. I got 2 egg yolks here, and I'm going to give it a good brush on the pastry to give it a nice golden color. Now you can understand why I call them cage apple. The apple, by the time it's cooked, it's going to be all nice and mushy. You're going to get the juice coming out of it, but you're going to get the crunchiness and flakiness of the golden puff pastry. And that's going to go in the oven, temperature of 180, and it will take 40 to 50 minutes depending on your oven. And now for the zabaglione sauce. Beat egg yolks and caster sugar together. And remember, when you mix sugar with eggs, always do it straight away. Don't leave them to rest there, because the sugar starts to cook your eggs and you're going to get like some kind of scrambled eggs bits inside, so it's not very pleasant. Okay, so I'm going to place that on a bain-marie, and we just want really to heat it up. So when it's warmed enough, we can use the electric whisk. It's almost like a sophisticated apple pie and custard, really, what we're making today. Yep, that's hot enough. You can see it's nice and fluffy, so we're just going to give it another good whisk with the electric whisk. Whisk until silky smooth. And then flavor with sweet Marsala. Let's have a look at our little beauties here. And that's definitely ready. The sauce is bubbling away. I just love it. And the smell is just so strong. Lovely golden pastry, nice and crunchy. And you can see the apple are ready to almost collapse. At home, I will just serve everybody straight from the dish, straight on the table, straight from the oven with the lovely zabaglione, the mixture of the butter, the spices, and the apple juice. It's going to be just so delicious. Here we are, my favorite winter dessert, caged apple with a Marsala zabaglione.